Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Hospitality TV. Today we are in Del Mar, California with none other than Master Sommelier Bobby Stuckey. How are you today, sir?
I'm great, man.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. The second time we've gotten to catch up, so I feel honored to get to sit with you again.
Yes. So I actually have to reference that quickly because when I had first started this channel, I think it was literally the second episode or whatever you want to call it, just a little addition I was going to try to film. And I reached out to you, I think, on Instagram. I think I DM'd you.
Yeah.
And telling you, hey, I'm trying to do this channel revolving around hospitality and I'd love to interview you one day. And I left my number there, I think, on the message. You literally called me within 10 minutes. Like, Raphael, it's Bobby Stuckey. What do you need? I'm like, oh crap, I was driving on the highway. I think I pulled over. I was like, oh man, okay, yeah, I was just, would love to interview you. Right now I'm doing pretty quick little snippets where I'm filming a question and sending it to somebody and they can film back the answer. And you were like, yeah, whatever you need, no problem. I'm gonna put you in touch with my assistant and we'll get it done. And I look back on that moment and honestly it's been something that I reference that keeps me kind of grounded in the sense that you need to try to say yes to people and help people however you can. I was just kind of so shocked in such a positive way that you're such a busy person, and I imagine a lot of people are reaching out to you on top of all the things that you do, but you are so willing, without knowing anything about me, to just hop in and help, with something regarding our industry. So thank you for that.
My pleasure.
Very inspiring. But if you would take a moment and just for everybody who's watching, would you just tell us who you are and what you're doing and maybe a couple minutes on how you've gotten to this point in your career?
Well, my name is Bobby Stuckey. I wear a few different hats, but some of the hats are the same hats I started wearing in 1983 when I was a punk rock cross-country running kid who got kicked out of Jesuit school. Some of that is still the same. So I started bussing tables fall of 1983, and Monday night I was still bussing tables on the floor. So some things haven't changed much, but then some other things have changed too. I went down the path of taking the MS or passing the MS program about 15, 16 years ago. I own Frasca Food and Wine in Boulder, Colorado, which has its 15th birthday in 2 weeks.
Oh, amazing! Congrats!
Which is a really emotional year for us. It feels really exciting to have a restaurant 15 years old and have this crazy energy 15 years in. We also have Pizzeria Locale. We have Tavernetta, which is our restaurant in Denver.
I ate there quickly a couple months ago.
Oh, great.
Coming out of a ski trip with the buddy. It was amazing.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you.
Very excited.
Yeah, and that's a little bit more casual than Frasca, but really a really fun restaurant to get to work in. That's where I work Friday night this week. And we're going to open a wine bar. We're going to open a wine bar called Sunday Vinyl right across the front door of Tavernetta in this fall. And we also make some wine in Friuli Venezia Giulia called Scarpetta. So that's kind of a couple of the hats that I wear.
So you've worked at some pretty amazing places, though, in your career to get to where you are now, right?
Yeah, I've had a really, I think every place I've worked, I've learned something that has changed me to who I am. And hopefully we all do that and realize these work experiences you can pull from them 20 years later. But yeah, there's a few places that have really changed me more than anything, and for a myriad of reasons.
Can you give us a couple of examples?
Yes.
Maybe like a couple, because I know you were at the French Laundry was a big one, Little Nell and Aspen, this is crazy with world-class wine list, literally, and top of the top, and people in our profession who are going there to execute at the highest level. And, one thing more people I talk to who have operated at this level, I feel like always have some very cool things to offer as far as what it was like working side by side. Even within my own career, I know there's things that I've learned working with certain people that we haven't done that in other scenarios.
Yes. Well, maybe I'll go backwards. So I'll go right before Frasca. That's where I met Lachlan, my business partner, chef and business partner. I met him at the French Laundry. So I was at the French Laundry from 2000 until we opened Frasca in 2004. I left there fall of 2003, and a lot of how I run a restaurant now was what I learned from Thomas Keller and Laura Cunningham. I don't know if people realize how many lives Thomas Keller's lives have changed. Meaning, Frasca is Frasca because of things that I learned from Thomas, and now there's employees of mine that their lives get positively changed. So much from Thomas, because we think of Thomas as this great chef who maybe really put American tasting menus into the format. But what I think people, unless they worked side by side with him, what they didn't know, I wish Thomas would write like a CEO book. Mm-hmm. Like, how did TK get everyone from the dishwasher who was raking the pea gravel parking lot up to the GM all on the same page? Not once in a while, every day. When you kind of walked onto property, you knew why you were there, and everyone in between. And that's doesn't matter if you're running an NBA basketball team or a coach of an NBA basketball team, if you're running a tech company, a pharmaceutical company, or a restaurant, very few leaders have the ability to do that. And like, I always thought that working for Thomas was, and people get caught up in the hours you work there, but how you'll never have an easier job. Meaning you'll never go to work where the whole team is so on the same vision. So him getting that vision was amazing, and it changed my life. And he also taught Lachlan and I hopefully I can teach this to as many employees as possible. He said something once to Lachlan and I, we have it as a quote. We only have 2 quotes in the back kitchen at Frasca. One is from I say he's the greatest quote machine of all time, but he's also a good marathon runner, Eliud Kipchoge, this Kenyan athlete, and then Thomas Keller. And Thomas taught us something. He said, Bobby, and he would say it to everybody, but he would say, when you're working for someone, treat it like it is your own, and someday it will become that. And it's amazing how many times in our career, it doesn't matter if you're a 22-year-old bar back or whatever, you go, oh, later I'll start acting like it's my own, or later I'll start acting like a manager, but right now I'll just be a goof off. Thomas got everyone to say, hey, be professional. Treat it like it's your own. Someday it will be. It meant so much to me. And it still means so much. I think I have my own restaurant because he taught me that.
Wow, that's really special. I think, it's interesting to apply that philosophy in a place that isn't so high caliber, right? I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, but something like a place like yours, like Frasca, like, I don't think you would have a slouch go to apply at Frasca, right? Like, people are going to go work there because they want to work with the best. They want to work with, yourself. They want to learn about hospitality. They want to work with a world-class wine list, and at the top of the pinnacle when it comes to service. But maybe there's more difficulty, and I don't know, I could be wrong, in trying to elevate some place that doesn't have those things yet, that they want to be that, but you're trying to get a staff of people, who maybe you have some people who are working there, they're working there for the money, and they don't necessarily want to go down the path of the Court of Masters, or they don't want to work in, go to culinary or whatever it may be, whatever side it may be. How do you approach that scenario?
Well, that is a tough scenario. And we have Frasca and we have Pizzeria Locale, which is a lot of young kids going to college. And what I always think is, look, French Laundry wasn't always French Laundry as we know it also. Like, Thomas had to start somewhere. When he first started the French Laundry and Laura was the GM, those were like kids from Napa, we called Nappins, that were like learning to be world class. So he had to go through that too. So I think what you have to do is you have to create an inspiring environment, and hopefully that kid that you're not thinking of, you gotta think of everyone, because you don't know who on your team is a busboy at the pizzeria who's gonna become the wine director at Sorrel in San Francisco, which is happening right now. Like one of my employees who's wine director at Sorrel in San Francisco was a kid at the pizzeria.
That's so cool. So cool to see that progression.
Yeah, it's fun.
So, let me mention something here. You had talked about you're busting tables on Monday, right? Like, I think one of the things that I've most admired in you is your longevity on the floor as a sommelier, right? And, you know, I don't know, I can't speak to other markets, but, you know, I've worked in San Francisco a little bit, and I've worked in, obviously I've been in San Diego almost 10 years now. But what we see a lot of is people moving to different aspects of our industry. They move to the sales side, they become sales reps, or they become brand ambassadors, and you can't blame anybody, right? You always have to do what's good for you and for your loved ones and for your family, right? You have to take care of those people first and foremost. But I think that sometimes when that happens, you know, we lose these valuable players in our industry. Not fully lose them. A lot of these guys are still super active in support groups and tasting groups and things like this, but you know, they're off the floor now. So it's not somebody that you can go see at their restaurant and see how they operate and go learn from them. You've managed to do that still. You've stayed, you know, in the restaurant, part owner, so you're an operator as well, but you're also in service. How have you managed to do that?
Well, I'm addicted to it still. I love it. And I have worked very hard as someone who has 200 employees and has multiple different businesses. I have definitely delegated I've actually delegated some things that would take me off the floor to make sure I'm on the floor as much. Mm-hmm. And I also feel like it's the spoken word, kind of like Native Americans would pass down oral stories or oral history. I think service is something that needs to be done with younger, new people, with people that have metis. I mean, one of the greatest things at Frasca is Rose Voda, our GM. She and I started working together in 1996 at the Little Nell. 5 days a week. She's a GM that doesn't take an office day. She's the GM of Frasca on that floor. And I get goosebumps when I watch her training a young person. And I tell the young people that work at Frasca, there's not many dining room floors where there's a Rose Voda, you know, that has that much chops. Mm-hmm. God, I wish we had more of those around, you know?
Do you think you instilled a lot of those qualities in her, or is this something that she just brought to the table?
Well, I don't want to go on record saying I instilled anything in Rose Voda because she's a force of nature, mm-hmm. and I'll probably get written up in my own restaurant from her if I said that. But Rose, I think she and I just are good mm-hmm. work partners, right? Mm-hmm. Like she's the GM, and she was started there as a server. Mm-hmm. She was the head server at Frasca, and we promoted her a few years ago to GM, and I think she cares about the craft.
Right.
Is it easy? No. Look, if you're an emergency room surgeon, right, and you have to miss Friday nights or Saturday nights because you're on call, your loved one might be a little bit upset, but their parents aren't going to say, oh, so-and-so's a emergency room surgeon, he's going to have to miss a holiday. No one's going to get upset. But for us in the restaurant industry, we don't get any slack. And we all go through it. If you're a waiter, if you're a GM, if you're a sommelier, you're going to miss Fridays and birthdays and holidays, and that's hard on us. Mm-hmm. So I think that's one of the things that's so hard in our industry. Rose goes through it. We talk about it. We all do. Mm-hmm. Every one of us in the industry works in an industry that one of our loved ones or one of our loved ones' family members is going to hate that you do it. Mm-hmm. And that's just a fact of life, and that cuts down on people who get to do it.
Yeah. So it's funny, that ties into another question that I had, which is, you know, so one, you've managed to stay in this industry for so long, and the part of it that's on the floor and very active and really kind of grinding it out, as they would say. But I think a big part of that, and I think this is something that doesn't really get talked a lot about in our industry, is the mental health aspect of that, right? Like, just the mental game alone, us, you know, you're mentioning right now, not being able to enjoy holidays with your loved ones, like, that sucks sometimes, especially when they want to enjoy it with you. And not only that, you're taking care of people who are enjoying it. You know, you're getting to see this, like, people who are celebrating and enjoying this amazing experience that you're creating. So it is rewarding there, but there's so many other aspects of this. You know, there's the burnout, right? That people, it's very real. It's very real, especially, I mean, in every facet of it, not in one or the other, where there's, You know, it's just a very demanding, high stress job that can take a lot out on us, and I think it really requires a pretty good, you know, mental focus to be able to kind of cut through. And I can only imagine what it takes to be able to do it like you're doing it for so long, right? It's not always sunny skies and clear skies. I mean, there's difficult situations that happen, you know, a lot. I mean, there's difficult guests that happen a lot. I mean, I know that people probably come to good restaurants like this and they want to have a great experience, but sometimes it's very difficult to deal. And we don't really talk about that a lot either. You know, the customer service part gets pretty difficult. But I guess my question is, you know, to bring it back, you know, do you have anything that you kind of go to keep you grounded when times get a little tough, or something that maybe somebody's, you know, giving you advice on how to stay focused?
Yeah. Well, one, let's talk about mental health. You know, we've been around 15 years. We've lost a couple people in our Frasca family because of either addiction or mental health. And I really worry about not just our industry, society. We need to learn to be able to better talk about mental health. Like, let's say if I have asthma, I'm going to tell my coworkers, hey, I have asthma. This is my asthma inhaler. I have to take it. No one would think twice about it.
Sure.
Mental health is just like having to have an asthma inhaler. You know, people need to be, and we just, as a society, not just Frasca Inc., everywhere, we need to learn to, if people have mental health needs, we should be able to talk about it openly. Like, we should just be more, and that's going to help things, but society's not there yet.
Right.
People are afraid to say, hey, I've got bipolar or
Right.
whatever,
Right.
because I'm going to get judged, or maybe my boss won't let me have my job. You know, we need to be really open about that. It's really hard to do. Society is slow to change on that. There's a lot of stigma, but we need to treat mental health like having an asthma inhaler. So that's the first thing we need to do. We're trying to do it. Look, if I need to talk to someone, I have to go see a therapist, I put on my Google Calendar for all my employees to see. Hey, look, that's what Bobby's doing. He's going to go talk to somebody.
Right.
So they know if Bobby's going to put on his Google Calendar for all 200 employees to see, hey, we can do that.
Right.
And that's okay. So I also think the other thing that we need to do in our industry is take care of ourselves. So like for me, I try to wake up every morning, go for a run, go for a bike ride, do something that is scheduled, that's not in this industry. And it doesn't matter if you're in the restaurant industry, if you're a surgeon, if you're a professional cyclist, whatever you are in life, if you're, whatever you do, an architect, schedule something every day a little bit that's not about your profession so you can get recharged. Because it doesn't matter what you do, there's going to be burnout.
Yeah. Yeah. So Bobby, can I ask you a little bit about kind of how you run your staff education at the restaurant? Like, do you have different, so what's something that's been interesting to me is kind of seeing like, and we've been trying to focus on how do we reach, for example, like a young food runner or a support staff member that's really hungry to learn more, doesn't really have any base yet, and they want to move into a different position, versus us teaching some of our captains that are at a more advanced level, or even myself thinking about how am I keeping my sommeliers engaged and keeping them challenged with new information. How do you kind of approach that in your restaurant?
Well, the first thing you have to do is you have to get everyone, all your senior people on board to understand and embrace and encourage and include the younger busboy or glass polisher that's going on. Because you don't know. I use this as an example. Dustin Wilson
Started as a food runner at Frasca. Everything ended up really well for him. Like, so there's Dustin Wilsons in every restaurant in America probably. They just need the right environment. So you have to encourage that enthusiasm. And I think we have an opportunity now, more so than ever. Because of the vision of the spotlight of the restaurant business, a lot of people that historically wouldn't have come into our business are coming in. Kids from Ivy League schools and things like that, oh my God, I want to be in the restaurant business.
Right.
That didn't happen 20 years ago. Well,
we need to realize we need to make very inspiring, challenging environments for those people because they are really hungry for knowledge.
we got to embrace that and focus more than maybe we did 20 years ago to inspire these type of. They have different needs than maybe a blue collar waiter 20 years ago. And then the senior people who have made it through, one of the great ways to keep them inspired is to have them help you teach other people. Mm-hmm. Because one of the greatest ways to get into something is to delve into something so you can teach it.
Totally.
So maybe if you have someone who like really is into Amaro, have him do an Amaro class for the new people.
Right.
Or I've got Audrey at Tavernetta. She really loves education. Man, let's empower her to do a lot of education. Mm-hmm. Or Carlin Carr, our wine director of the company, she might sit down with each restaurant and find people that are really senior people that have something to share and empower them to share. Mm-hmm. So you can get that trickle down.
Yeah. Do you do anything with like any of the back of house members? Do you guys do like cross training with like wine education classes for them?
Well, they're always invited, mm-hmm. and we try to schedule it so they can do that.
Yeah.
And we also do pre-service. We do almost an hour pre-service every day.
Full staff?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So there's a lot of chances for, and sometimes the kitchen guys and gals have to get out early because they're behind on prep or something like that. But every day we have a pretty in-depth pre-service. 50 Mondays a year we have our Monday night wine flight where the kitchen guys are there pre-service tasting the wines just with the front of the house.
Yeah, I missed that. So it's been difficult especially here in California as the minimum wage keeps on going up. Labor's such a big thing. 10 years ago it wasn't like that. So a full front of the house pre-shift was the norm, and you can communicate things to everybody all at once, and it's a very cohesive message now. I mean, we have maybe 2 people, and then they just trickle in, and we just need to hunt them down and give them the pre-shift information. And as they come in, and it's difficult.
Yeah,
it's difficult to get that full house.
100%. Yeah, there will have to be some sort of breaking point on this whole labor if we're going to keep growing positively in our industry.
Yeah. So I want to ask you something about, kind of just the way that we're educating and the way that wine is being seen. Maybe you can give me, a look into how it's changed for you or what you're noticing. But, I want to talk about how kind of like this. I know you've talked a lot about natural wine before, and I don't need to go down, that path necessarily in that context. But I think it's super super interesting to see how people have embraced this, right? Have embraced like the this kind of wave of a new wine culture almost, in the sense it's just something different. And I was thinking about it on the way over here, and I wonder if it's almost a reaction to how sometimes wine can be difficult for people to perceive it as just an enjoyable beverage. And without having to learn about it, and maybe they get intimidated by there's so much knowledge out there, even with like the presence of so many like advanced and master soms who are like, oh, I don't know anything about wine, so maybe I can't enjoy it as much. And I think maybe one of the reasons that natural wines, this kind of movement, if you will, has been so successful is that they've almost taken that out of it, and it's certain producers, and as they've made it into a very fun beverage with cool labels and things like this, where people almost don't have to think about it because it's just a beverage that I can enjoy and have fun with. Do you think that we've, as wine professionals or educators, that there's some fault of us maybe that falls on us, that we've been unable to communicate or not been the best ambassadors of wine to put it in front of more people?
Well, I don't know, but what's interesting. Well, first of all, right on the record is I've been a huge fan of great, well-made natural wine for a long time. Mm-hmm. So while I've been openly critical of a movement that is not nice to all the guests, that's what the biggest thing.
Right.
And it's interesting. I read a study last week, and it caught me off guard. I think that the natural wine movement has a lot of positive. I mean, look, anything that gets us better farming practices, getting Roundup out of Napa Valley this year, that's awesome. All those things are really, really big positives. But sometimes it's a megaphone of a minority, so it seems bigger than it is. I didn't know this. I just read a study last week that the generation that we're talking about is actually drinking much less wine than the Gen X did. I didn't know that. So maybe it's seemed like there's a lot of people coming in, but there's actually less of it.
Yeah.
So that concerns me, that some people that don't fall into the clique of the Misfits t-shirt and rah, rah, rah are being left behind.
Right.
So that concerns me, because I would think that law of averages, we should have so many people into wine right now, right? Because like, I'm 50 this year, my parents drank wine, but anyone older than me did not have parents that drank wine. So anyone younger than me, most people have multiple generational families that had wine around.
Right.
We should be skyrocketing.
Yep.
And I'm concerned that we're not. We're actually, we think that a lot of people are getting brought along for the ride, but actually we're not.
Yeah.
So we've got to figure out, how do we get the whole bell curve of the people?
So how do we do that? I mean, if you could send a message out to, like, I think it's got to be through some of the people in our industry like ourselves and other people who almost serve as the person in the middle, right? The ambassadors for wine, bringing it to people. If you wanted to send a message to, to sommeliers or people in this industry, what would you tell them? What's a good approach for that, to bridge that gap?
I think two things. I think one thing is that we have had such an explosion of wine professional positions. And I said wine professional positions. If you put your hand up and say, I want a wine professional position, I want to be a sommelier, I want to be a wine buyer, I want to run a retail store. If you put your hand up and you want that, then you have a duty to work really hard to know as much as possible, whatever it pushes you to know. So when any type of guest comes in, doesn't matter if they're a 55-year-old person that has been collecting Burgundy for 20 years, or someone that's just found Chenin Blanc last month, we need to be able to talk to all of them on the same bell curve. That's the most important thing. I think we're getting so into, I only want to talk to people about my niche, and people are falling away, that are we're having a reverse inclusiveness where it should be really inclusive.
I agree. Well, Bobby, I can't thank you for your time. I think we're going to wrap up there. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
And guys, just to wrap up, don't forget to follow Hospitality TV. We're on Instagram and Facebook, where we'll chop up these videos. And we're live on the podcast on Spotify and on iTunes. Go follow us. Thank you.